You remember Elf Dawkins?
It kind of scares me.
That's what I'm calling him now. It just feels right somehow. Well, he decided that my very silly response video was worth a response back, and his response is just him on a webcam, or telephone camera, whatever the kids are calling it these days, for 40 minutes, which means this is going to be a big video. Which means this video is almost certainly going to be in parts. But look down at the timeline at the length of this first part, and I don't think you're going to mind. I know I'm about to waste a lot of time on this, and it's the end of the month of January, in the year of our Lord 2022. Well, not the end, but too close to it. Normally I try to do 4 videos in a month, just for people who don't know. I try to get 4 videos up on Patreon each month, and I've been working on other videos this month, and I feel good about them, but for some reason this instilled in me the need to just drop everything and spend a whole bunch of time I don't really have, even though I could just do this next month, to do this now. There's no reason to, but something in it spoke to me. Something about this video is entertaining enough to me personally that this is what I want to do. And since I'm an atheist, and nothing matters if there's no God, and the feeling of stuff mattering can't come from anywhere but God, I guess God must have told me to make this video. I've got the divine inspiration to talk about how stupid Christianity is again. It's all very ineffable.
Father and the mighty Lord Jesus Christ, the Messiah.
Yeah, that's how the video starts, in the middle of a sentence. I think it's a live stream, though, and I'm the last person who should be talking about people's skills at live streaming, so I'm just gonna leave that alone.
I just got back from dropping my fiance off, but...
Okay, well, since we're sharing, I just got back from the bathroom.
This is actually a quick response video to Logicked.
40 minutes is quick to you? God, way to make me feel lazy.
So, there was a man, an atheistic man, who recently posted a reaction video on my recent skit on if atheists were honest. And after he reacted to it, it was a whole family of atheists. I'm talking about brothers and sisters and cousins and mother and father coming to my channel, just completely being blasphemous.
Family, mother and father and cousin. Is this some kind of thing I'm not familiar with? Does me being confused by this make me look stupid right now? Because I'm okay with that.
Completely being, you know, overly insulting and disrespectful. Okay? It got way out of hand, so...
Out of hand? A comment section got out of hand? What does it even mean? If you don't like comments, why do you even read them? The whole point of comments is for people to come over and insult you and make stupid arguments against you. That's the fun part. That's the heart and soul of YouTube, man. Without that, it's a boring nightmare. I mean, of course, I don't and can't endorse people doing that, and I never ever would, because it's YouTube. And it's full of a whole lot of boring people whose entire life seems to be based on taking offense to things. Having hurt feelings. Help, help, I got a mean comment. Please ban. The dislike button's affecting my mental health. But man, those moments over the years when I kicked some kind of a hornet's nest and got some big reaction from a bunch of idiots, you know, like when I had 40,000 comments on one video of people just yelling at each other, those are my favorite times to look back on. And unfortunately, they're all too rare. I mean, I appreciate all the people who leave nice comments on my videos, but hardly anybody ever comes over to my channel to insult me and, like, argue with my viewers. It just feels like something's missing, you know? Maybe I gotta piss off some channel with like 20 million subscribers.
A lot of people are asking me, why did I disable my comment sections? Well, I disabled it, one, because it's my channel. I could do whatever I want.
It's not really a why, is it? Whatever, I do what I want.
Whatever, I do what I want.
And it's very salty of you to assume that I disabled my comments just because I'm scared or something like that. Well, you guys can think what you want, but it got to a point where everybody was just being completely insulting. Nobody was being reasonable. Nobody was being reasonable, so there was no point of having people comment on my thing if they were just going to be insulting instead of rather asking questions. Hey, you know, Christ Righteous, why did you make this video? Hey, you know, I disagree with this video. Can we reason?
And just to be clear, the original video somehow you think was reasonable. Somehow you think it warranted a scholarly response of, "Oh, sir, I believe I found a point of disagreement with your video here. Perhaps we should sit down over a cup of tea and have a discussion." I mean, the basic premise of the video was that atheists are a bunch of chicken shit scared liars. The entire point was to insult people. You barely had a point beyond that. It's like walking up to some guy and saying, "Hey, you're a liar. You lie all the time. I don't even know you, but you lie. I know you lie. What do you want to fight? You scared? You scared?" And then you slap him across the face and you run away. And the whole time you're running away, you're screaming, "I'm not scared. I'm not scared. They're my legs. I can do whatever I want." And as he stands there and yells a couple insults after you as you're running away, you're screaming, "Why are you not being reasonable? Why won't you reason with me? What a joke.
and stuff like that. But no, people wanted to just be like, "Oh, you're stupid. Oh, look at you. You're sped. Oh, you're kind of slow in the head. Oh, you're retarded."
Well, no. Look, I understand that might be a little harsher than what you put out there in the first place, but the fact remains, what you put out was not exactly a respectful, reasoned debate. You kind of got to expect you're going to get what you give. And yeah, okay, people, please don't go over just to abuse the people I respond to. If you're going to comment in someone's comment section, make a point. Don't just hurl nasty insults. And the fact is, the guy didn't really hurl insults in his video. His video was insulting and stupid, but he was not talking about people in that way. He was not that harsh. So the insult should be backed up with an argument at least. I mean, let's be civilized. Now, with that said, I wonder if people were really just saying that out of the blue, unprompted, or if Elf Dawkins here was active in his comment section. I mean, he was clearly reading it. Were these comments some sort of response to something he said? I don't know. Nobody will ever know because he turned the comments off. If the comments were still on, I could perhaps condemn something specifically, but I can't because they're not.
Saying all sorts of things like that. So I'm just like, you know what? You guys ain't gonna continue to talk like that. So I decided to disable my comments. I don't think there's a big deal with that.
You're kind of making it a big deal.
People want to assume that I'm like scared of atheists. I debate atheists. That's what I do.
Unless they're in the comments section and they say a no word.
I have videos of me debating atheists. If any atheist wants to debate me on my channel, you're more than welcome to. Just contact me on my Instagram and we can set something up. I'm not worried about none of that.
Yeah, arguing one-on-one in a forum you control, maybe you're fine with that. But if there's visible public criticism under your video for all time, that's a little much, huh? I know my audience, man. I've seen the comment sections that they visit. Sometimes they can be a little snarky, a little harsh, but the vast majority of them were not saying anything to you like what you're saying they were. And probably there weren't more than about 1,000 comments anyway. You could easily have dealt with the people who you thought were really unreasonable and really insulting. You could have blocked them on your channel, deleted their comments, and it would have been dealt with. It probably would have been 10 people. And the rest of them would have been actually arguing with you, telling you you're wrong, telling you why you're wrong, telling you that your entire video was a ridiculous straw man. And the fact that most of your comment section was filled up with criticism rather than with praise is by far the most likely reason you blocked the comments. Because it was quicker to do it that way and just pretend everybody was ripping into you in a completely unfair way than to allow the criticism to stand in public for people to read and understand why your video sucked as bad as it sucked. Am I calling you a liar? Yes, and you can't really complain about it because you did it first. Only difference is, I know you were wrong, and you know I'm right.
But there's one thing that really fascinates me about Logicked, okay?
The face, the hat, the glasses.
Now, if he's an atheist and he believes that God doesn't exist, and he wasn't created, there's no...
Wait, you're actually going to try and make a point here, aren't you? Are you even going to mention that I look funny? They always mention I look funny, as if somehow I don't know that.
Now, if he's an atheist and he believes that God doesn't exist, and he wasn't created, there's no value to him.
Wait. See, look, you're doing that thing again, right? Where you put words into other people's mouths? Atheists are just lying that they don't believe in God. They're just lying that they don't think our arguments are very good. They secretly believe it, but they're just too scared to admit it. They just don't like it. That was your last video, making up a bunch of crap about atheists and then just insisting over and over that that's what we think. And now you're showing signs of doing the exact same thing all over again with this video. Logicked is an atheist. That means he thinks there's no value to him. No? Is this all you're capable of? Surely you have something better than just making things up and pretending other people believe them and then acting like as if you made a point.
He wasn't created, he wasn't designed, there's no purpose, there's no meaning for his life.
Again, look, if you want to talk about what atheists think about things like purpose and meaning and value, what we think these concepts are, how they apply to different things, then by all means do that, ask a question. Show any sort of inquisitiveness about other people. Show some sort of comprehension of your opposition's opinion about the conversation we're having. Show there's more inside that skull of yours than just an empty void. Show that you're worth taking seriously. But if this is the approach you're going to take, you're not. At all, because you don't even know what we're talking about.
Because we're nothing but a clump of cells. We came from an accident, an explosion. We came from macroevolution.
That has literally no bearing on what people find meaning in or value in or purpose in. None whatsoever. The origin of people is not relevant to whether people value people or find purpose in their lives. Let me put it to you this way, okay? In one case, you're made of cells. You want to say just a clump of cells because you want to denigrate it, because you try to make it sound worthless. You try to make it sound like it doesn't matter because you don't want people to believe it matters, unless they also believe in your religion. You want there to be your religion and then a bunch of people who don't give a shit about anything and think nothing matters and are just, I don't know, antisocial psychopaths or something. That's how you'd like it to work, because that would be very convenient for your religion if people who didn't believe in your religion found no way to put meaning onto the world. But we can, and we do, because creating meaning and perceiving value are things humans do, not something God does for us. But that's a tangent. Back to what I was saying. In one case, you're made of cells, and in one case, you're made of cells and also there's a spooky ghost possessing the cells, otherwise known as a soul. Does one of these inherently matter more than the other? Does one of them inherently have more value than the other? Why? Do spooky ghosts have more inherent value than cells? They're just another thing, another natural thing in the universe. What makes that different? What makes that inherently better? Inherently different, even. I don't see how it is. In both cases, you're just a thing that exists. Neither has more inherent value or worth than the other, because inherent value and worth don't make sense as a concept. You can't measure it. It's not a thing that's there. Now, you can say it's valued by someone. You can say that someone places value onto either one of these things, but that doesn't mean it's inherently valuable. It just means that someone values it. Humans, gods, spirits, whatever. Someone is of the opinion that there is value in that thing. It matters to them. Because again, value is not an inherent property of a thing. It's the result of something living things do. Something has value if something values it. Now, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this some more, so I'll stop there for now, but let me ask you a question, because it seems like you're conflating the soul with the value, right? You're basically creating a dichotomy here, where you either have a soul and therefore value, or you're a clump of cells, you were created by an accident, you were created by macroevolution, and so on and so on. Let's see if you can actually separate these concepts out in your head. Imagine a universe where you are made of cells. You don't have a soul. You are a product of evolution. The universe is the product of the Big Bang, and the Big Bang was unintentional, not caused by a god. But there is a god who pervades everything. He didn't create it all. It really just happened by natural processes. But he's there anyway. He exists. And he values it deeply. He sees you, the human, the soulless clump of cells, as you want to put it. And you matter to that god. He values what you are. Do you still insist that everyone has to cease to value that clump of cells? Do you still insist that there should be no value in it to anyone because it has no soul? I'd also like you to answer the same question, except instead of the god not creating the universe, he did create the universe and humans, but he did not create souls. Humans don't have souls. What then? Do you insist this god must see those humans as having no value to him because they have no souls? And now instead of the god, what if it's just a whole bunch of humans? And the thing itself? What if the clump of cells values itself? What if the clumps of cells around it value it too? Do you still insist it must be otherwise? Do you still insist that's wrong? Do you still scream at them to stop it because you don't think it lines up with your religion? In both cases, what's the reason for your answer? It's kind of interesting to probe what people will allow as valid value and what they won't, when they think it's best for other people to stop thinking people matter. It's usually a pretty arbitrary line.
Why should I take him serious if he doesn't take himself serious?
Well, it's kind of a moot point, because I do take myself seriously, just not too seriously.
Right? How is it that a clump of cells has the audacity to make a video as such?
Oh, the audacity. How dare I step up to such an amazing specimen as yourself?
And try to tell me that I'm wrong.
The entire point of your video was to tell all atheists what's in their head because you know better. It was to tell us that we think your arguments are really, really good and compelling, but we don't like them because we're scared of them, and so we say we don't. How do I have the audacity to tell you you're wrong? How the fuck do you have the audacity to tell yourself you're right? Who the hell are you to tell me that I can't tell you you're wrong about what I think? I will tell you what I think. If you want to know what I think, you come to me and you ask me. Don't assign a bunch of garbage to me and then tell me I'm audacious for objecting to it. But why won't they come and have a reasoned debate with me? Why did they say mean things to me? Because of this, you fucking idiot! Why do you think?
Listen, if we're nothing but clumps of cells reacting in the space-time continuum, how am I objectively wrong?
So if organisms made of cells operating by physical processes have thoughts and opinions which are the product of physical processes, how are you objectively wrong when you lie about those thoughts and opinions and say they're things they're not? is your question. When what you say does not line up with reality, how does it not line up with reality? To put it more simply. And just to be clear, these are the kind of arguments you think are so good we couldn't possibly reject them. You know, I don't expect you to have high standards, but some standards would be good. But I guess how can you have standards if God didn't put them into you or something? You couldn't just hold yourself to a standard. That's what? That's just crazy. Personal responsibility, what? Blasphemy.
How am I objectively wrong for there being a God, for me thinking that there's a God?
Wait. How are you objectively wrong should have been the end of the question. How are you objectively wrong about the ideas you were putting in our mouths? Because that was what your video was about, not about you believing in God. It wasn't about you. It wasn't about your beliefs. It wasn't about anything about God. Your video that I responded to was about your made-up garbage about what we think. Whether you're objectively wrong or not about there being a God is not the topic here.
My process of evolution led me to believe in a God. Why am I wrong and why are you right?
Are you seriously trying to change the topic this early in the video? You're talking about a video you made where you spew a bunch of lies about us, and then you start off this video doing it again, and now you want to just switch tracks and go straight on to whether God exists or not, as if I'm going to be interested in any way in having that conversation with you right now. How do you have this little self-awareness?
Why do we have these discussions if it was nothing but a product of a result of macroevolution?
You realize that regardless of where a human comes from, regardless of what created humanity, regardless of what origin humans think humans have, a human's still a human, right? Like, if we start believing in evolution, we don't suddenly lose the ability and inclination to communicate. What are you talking about? You're talking about why people exchange ideas? Because we're social animals, and for one thing it's fun for us, and for another thing it shapes our society. What, do you think there's no practical reason to have discussions about stuff? And to be honest, it doesn't even fucking matter if there is a practical reason. People have pointless discussions all the time just to do it. Why do you think philosophers spend so much time arguing about whether a chair is really a chair? Because they like it. They find it engaging. Whoa. And I'm a bit confused, soul or no soul, how you think that you telling people that we believe things that we don't believe is completely devoid of practical consequences. I mean, when someone's spreading lies about me, when they're saying things that just aren't true, when they're convincing people to believe bullshit, which they'll then carry on and use in their day-to-day lives to make judgments, to make decisions, to form their first impressions about people, that has a real-world impact. So it's not just academic, it's not just entertainment, it's not just arguing for the sake of arguing, although of course it can be. But no, you're spreading lies about me. You're asking me why that matters when I have to live in the society that your lies affect. And you know what? I don't even know why I bother explaining this to you. I've explained this multiple times recently. I think in the response I made to you, in fact. And I really feel like an idiot for bothering to do it again, because the fact is you should be able to figure this out yourself. You can't possibly be this stupid. You can't possibly think that the reason to talk to people has to come from God and not from the people. You know, here's the bottom line. I do you the courtesy of assuming that when you're trying to make a point about something, you probably have some sort of a reason for doing it. Maybe you find it very important, or maybe you just find it interesting. Maybe you're annoyed about something. Maybe you're just bored. I assume that your reasons are your responsibility, and you're not going to do something that you don't want to do. I don't have to babysit you. I don't have to try to convince you to spend your time better. You spend your time as you like, and that's fine. If how you want to spend your time is lying about what other people think, that's fine. That's your right. All I ask is that maybe you extend the same courtesy to me. Maybe you should grant me the courtesy of realizing that my reasons are my own. I have them. They're no real business of yours. Now, instead of this pathetic tactic of trying to discourage your opposition from engaging with you by trying to convince them that nothing in the universe should matter to them, and therefore this conversation shouldn't matter, and therefore they should just shut up and leave me alone, maybe you should just engage back. That might be a whole lot more fun.
So, when it comes to, let me set this up real quick. When it comes to an atheist trying to respond to a theist, they don't think about their worldview first.
Oh, please, tell me again what my worldview is. You seem to know it so much better than I do.
They just want to attack a theist. They just want to try to argue with a theist. They don't think about their worldview. They don't think about the perspective.
Dude, the entire video you made was about my worldview. It was an attack on what you perceive to be my worldview. My video back was about my worldview. I wasn't attacking a theist. Did I even talk about theism? I don't know, maybe, but only tangentially, because that wasn't the point. Your entire video was to attack atheists. Of course, without first considering the worldview, considering the perspective of the atheist. You know, the people your video was about. The people whose perspective and worldview was critically important for you to understand and portray accurately. The worldview and perspective that you got astonishingly wrong, as every atheist watching it knew because they know what's in their heads and you don't. But yeah, no, I'm the one who didn't put in enough thought.
You got to put it like this. If God doesn't exist, listen, if God does not exist.
Let me guess, then please think nothing matters, think you shouldn't have discussions about anything with anyone ever, and just shut up. Stop begging for people to conform to your straw man. We don't. Being a person, having value for things, seeing meaning in things, wanting to talk about stuff does not require a god. You're begging for us to think it does because that's the only way that the video you made is true. If you can convince us to believe the total nonsense in the video you made about us, then retroactively maybe your video won't be complete trash. Well, I'm afraid that's just too bad. You might just have to accept that you've critically misunderstood your opposition.
And you were not created. You were not designed. Everything is just an accident. We are nothing but cells reacting in this space-time continuum.
Just because you throw the phrase nothing but in front of something, that doesn't actually make it worthless. There are many things in this world that people have used the phrase nothing but in front of. Many kinds of people they've used that phrase for, and it doesn't change a thing. The thing still is what it is. And if someone values what it is, even if it's nothing but what it is, its value is not negated.
That's it. We're nothing but clumps of cells. So that means immaterial values don't matter.
If you're nothing but a thing that I don't respect, right, to put it more generally, then immaterial values, don't exactly know what you mean by that, don't matter. Also don't know what you mean by that. Do you mean that the universe itself doesn't care? That reality itself doesn't care about you? Well, so what? That's not what it means for something to matter. When I say something matters, I'm not saying concern for this thing is woven into the very fabric of fundamental reality. That's not necessary. In fact, to my ear, it's not even very coherent. To say that something matters is not some statement about the base of reality. It's about relationships. It's about how a thinking, feeling entity relates to something else. Could be a person, could be a dog, could be a sentimental book. I don't know. If someone has an object in their hand that means everything to them and means nothing to you, say it's some old glove, dirty, worn, to you it's worthless. To them it means the world, presumably because of something it represents, some memory. What do? Do you just say, well, God doesn't care about that, God did not imbue that glove with value, and you take it and you light it on fire and throw it in the garbage? Is that what you do? Because that's the attitude you're expressing right now. You're saying that that's the way you should be. As a Christian. No, things, including people, matter to people. That's what it means for something to matter. Saying that something matters, saying that something has value is not a statement about fundamental reality. It's not some cosmic truth, some physical law that the thing has value, is of value inherently. That's ridiculous to expect. It's an absurd standard to hold. But then again, I guess I should be thankful. If you didn't have absurd standards, you wouldn't have any at all.
Or maybe we don't have immaterial values. Love doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. There's no objective value. There's no objective reason, objective goal for any of these things that we feel, that we think, or that we do.
What do you mean? You objectively feel it. You objectively think it. You objectively value it. You objectively have reasons. You objectively have goals. Those features of your mind are objective features of your mind. You have them. You do. You. Not somebody else. You and your fiancé. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. God, the universe, the fabric of reality. It doesn't matter. It's in your head. It's in your mind. And hers. I'm just going to assume she. I don't know. The value two people have for each other is between them. Why are you looking to some sort of external source to validate your feelings, your values, what you personally find important? If you find out tomorrow that God really doesn't exist, will you cease to love your fiancé? Will you cease to love anything? Is this really what you are? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think you want to believe that's what you are for some reason. I think you're clinging on to the belief that that's what you are, and you're trying to put that kind of belief onto other people. You want to believe you're completely valueless, absent God. You want to believe that your life means nothing, that everything that you value falls to ash as soon as God doesn't exist. You want a world where relationships are not primary, where in fact they're worthless, where value is something imposed, not something perceived. You want a world that without your religion is completely devoid of hope and value and meaning and love and feeling, cold and dead and empty. That's what you want to be true, from the sounds of it. I mean, that's honestly what I'm getting from what you're saying. You want it to all hinge on this one thing you believe, and it doesn't. It just doesn't. If you cease to believe in God, your opinions on these things will not really change. Now, you've tied it all up together in a big old knot. It might be kind of hard for you to untangle. It might be kind of hard for you to understand what actually is truly related to your God belief and what you've just sort of related to it after the fact, what you've associated with it that is not inherently associated with it. That might be tricky. That is a thing people struggle with because this religion does such a good job of convincing people that everything is part of the religion, that everything they value only has value because of the religion, that every moral imperative or ethical idea they have comes from the religion, that any hope or joy or love or confidence in any idea that they have comes from the religion. And of course, none of that is true, but from what I've heard from people who had to deconvert, which fortunately I never did, it can be a big process trying to disentangle all of this stuff, trying to decide what's the religion and what's just humanity. But it can be done. Many people do it every day. The world is not as hopeless as you think. Now, I don't expect to deconvert you, but I would like you to know that.
If that's true, then what has compelled you to react to my set of cells, my clumps of cells, making a video talking about atheists and what I believe how they think or their position?
Kind of already been over that, but now at the moment I'm feeling a little bit more sympathetic and a little bit less annoyed because I'm realizing just how bleak it really must all look to you from the inside of that religion. I mean, considering the stuff you're saying, you must think things are really bad out here. Or if you don't, you seem to feel that you have to portray them as if they are. I'm not sure which one it is, but yeah, this doesn't really have a whole lot of impact on atheists. You're basically giving a sermon to Christians about how terrible it is to be an atheist. And it's kind of just making me feel very sorry for you because you really just cannot see outside the box, can you? Or you think it'll just be so dark and scary outside that you don't want to open up the lid and take a peek.
What compelled you to do something like that?
What compels you to pour a bowl of cereal in the morning? What are you asking me?
Right? So, Logicked, man, personally, it's hard to take you serious when putting myself in your worldview.
No, it's hard for you to take me seriously when you're putting yourself in your idea of my worldview. Where did you get this stuff anyway? Where did you actually get the idea that this is what atheists are, how we think, what the world is to us? Where did you get this idea? Church? Your parents? YouTube? Where did this idea come from? Because it didn't come from us.
I believe that you are made in the image of God. And I just want to let you know something, man.
Oh, here we go.
God loves you so much that he came down.
Told you so.
And he took your sin upon himself because we have all fallen short.
Just to be clear, do you think I haven't heard this before? Do you think anyone who watches my videos has not heard this before? Did you think this through before you started this? In fact, I think just taking a second and thinking things through would be a good skill for you in general.
Short of the glory, the perfection of God, the holiness of God we have all fallen short of. Because you are a sinner and you have sinned against God and you deserve judgment, you deserve condemnation, you deserve to be separated from a holy God, such as I, we deserve hell.
You don't believe that. No, I don't buy it. I think you've been raised to believe it. I think you've been raised to say it. But I think if we had a conversation just on that question, I could get you squirming. I could get you not wanting to say it. I could get you to demonstrate that deep down inside there's still a person there who cares about people. Not because he was told to or because somebody else values them and so he's just following along because he feels obligated, but values them in a real, sincere, personal way, as something that comes from within himself, not from outside. A person who does not believe that his fellow humans deserve infinite torture, who does love, who does think people matter, who does care what happens to them, who might think people are flawed and have their foibles, but ultimately that they don't deserve anything like what you're saying. I can see it in your eyes. You don't look like a monster. You don't look like a psychopath. You don't look like you hate your fellow man. You look scared. You look sad. You look hurt. And I think that whatever monstrosities Christianity has tried to force you to accept, whoever's taught you this stuff, I think that deep down inside you're still better than it. I think that you care about people regardless of what your God thinks. I don't think it's a feature of him, I think it's a feature of you. I don't think your religion has a damn thing to do with how you feel about people. I think if you found out tomorrow it wasn't true, you'd probably feel more relieved than worthless. I don't think you'd start to devalue the people around you, I think you'd just feel happy for them. I think if you realized in the evening that you didn't believe and you went to sleep, you'd open your eyes on a whole new beautiful world in the morning. One without all the misery and torture and cosmic horrors. That's what I think. Do I actually know for a fact what's in your head? No, not at all. But although I get annoyed at you sometimes, and although I have some negative opinions about you, I don't want to believe that you can accept something this awful. I don't want to believe that you're this antisocial, that you're this anti-human, that you despise humanity, yourself, your fiancé, everyone, this much. This is something I refuse to believe right now because I don't want to. That's not usually the case, but in this case it is. I freely admit it. I don't want to believe that about you. And so until I see some real evidence that that is in fact what you are, that you are that much of a monster, that you are that hateful, that you do despise your fellow people that much, that you are that dangerous and unhinged and misanthropic, I decline to believe it, even though you claim that it's true. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt whether you want it or not.
But God loves us so much that he sent his only begotten son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross, taking our punishment upon himself so that we wouldn't have to face that punishment.
Right, I made myself into a clump of cells, so it mattered more when I died. And then I made myself die briefly, except not really at all, because I never died. And by doing that, I saved everybody, even though I could have just kind of done it. And by everybody, I don't mean like everybody, or even the majority of people, or even really that big of a percentage of people. I only mean the people who believe I did the thing. Probably not all of them either, probably just a subset of them, but you know, whatever. Details. And everyone else I'm still gonna burn in hell, forever. Screaming and writhing in infinite torment, because they're my children, and I love them, and that's what you do to your children that you love. That's love. That's what love is. That's love. Yeah. I think so. I don't know, I'm a little iffy on the concept. It's really just me out here, outside the universe. Kind of has been the whole time. I've never had a girlfriend, or a mom. So, I'm a little shaky on that, but I think that's what it is. Hey, buddy, I also have a hard time believing you believe that's what love is. I really do. If I'm wrong, I'm terribly sorry for assuming such a good thing about you. Oops, my bad. But in that case, please avoid offering me any of your Christian love, because it sounds very, very painful.
He took that punishment, died on the cross, resurrected on the third day, defeating death, so that we wouldn't have to face death. We wouldn't have to face death.
Oh, how nice. Thanks, God. Unconditional love. That's
all we have to do is put our faith and trust in Christ.
Oh, right. The strings. I forgot about the strings. Can't have unconditional love without strings attached.
Trust in what he did. Genuinely trust in what he did. We receive his Holy Spirit, which is the Holy Spirit of God actually testifies of God's existence, testifies of what Christ did on the cross. Confirmation, and he will instill his Holy Spirit within you.
Okay, if having the Holy Spirit instilled in me implies that I'm going to start believing this kind of stuff, that love is infinitely torturing your children, only saving them from a terrible, terrible fate if they do you a favor, saying that everything in the world is completely worthless to anyone all the time unless we believe that there's a God who gives it permission to have value, then it sounds like purely as a matter of self-preservation I should avoid this Holy Spirit. It sounds like some sort of awful demon thing. Sounds like everyone I knew back when I lived in hell. I did not have good neighbors.
And then you will be saved. That's the gospel.
Yeah, I know. There's a reason I make fun of it instead of believing it. Thanks for reminding me. Did you ever actually listen through all that stuff you say real careful like? Or did you just kind of learn how to say it and now you just sort of say it? Because it sounds like the second one.
But a lot of atheists are so hard-hearted.
Yeah, for me to say, it doesn't sound very loving to burn your kids in hell forever. If it were my kids or anyone I loved, I could never do that to them. And if I had a chance to save them from it, I would just do it and there would be no strings attached. Ugh, so hard-hearted. How could we be so cruel? You know, what's that saying from the Bible? Why do you see the speck that's in your brother's eye, but you do not notice the log that's in your own eye? You got the whole forest sticking out of your head, buddy.
They don't want the gospel. They don't care about the gospel. They literally don't value themselves. They think that they're nothing but a clump of cells.
Are you saying these things are related? Like that one somehow follows from the other? Genuine question.
That they're here one day and then they die the next day, become worm food. Is that really how you think life is?
Yeah. Life is temporary. Life is fleeting. Life is impermanent. That's why it matters. If it lasted forever, it could never end. It couldn't even be extinguished if you wanted to. That would devalue it horribly. But as it is, I have limited time. We all do. We only get one shot. And that's not some endorsement of rampant hedonism. That's an endorsement of figuring out what actually matters to you. Deeply, truly. Not everyone manages to do that, and it's a tragedy. But it's the fact of the matter. They missed their chance, whether by their own doing or not. And it's unfortunate.
That's a miserable, depressing life to have.
No, it isn't. And I know that you've been taught to not be able to see why, right? I know that you've been taught that the only thing that could possibly have value is the fantasy, right? The fantasy of infinite life, the fantasy of getting to see everyone again, forever and ever and ever in heaven. But we're not you. When you don't believe the fantasy, when you don't expect a fantasy, when you don't expect infinity of everything, when you're not so fucking entitled as to expect infinite happiness, infinite life, infinite time with your friends and family. And when you recognize that it's finite, that shows you what matters. It forces you to boil down your life to the things that are actually important. Or at least if you're wise with your time, you'll feel as if you're forced to do that. And with a bit of good luck, if you find the right people, the right path for you, you'll really enjoy the time that you have and you'll be happy at the end that you had it. And then your body will break down and it'll help to feed some new life that will keep the world going. Somebody else will be created from your organic matter, and they'll get to have their life. I understand that to you it's a very alien way of looking at the world. You've been trained out of it. You've most likely never been allowed to see life for what it is. You've been raised into a particular way of seeing things that teaches you, like you're teaching people now, to devalue everything unless it's infinite, unless it's given value by a god, unless it's perfect, unless it's forever, and that without your religion, everything is utterly void of value. The value people place on each other is worthless. The only thing that matters is the value God places on them, period. And without that, it all means nothing. That's the miserable worldview. The one that strips everything of value and meaning and purpose. And worse, which denies things the ability to end. I wonder who you're trying to convince, honestly. Are you trying to convince us? Because you should know it's not going to work. Are you trying to convince yourself? Are you trying to convince your fellow Christians? Are you trying to shore up belief by saying, look how miserable atheism really is? Oh boy, you sure don't want a part of that. You'd probably just cry all day. Is that the point? I don't even know what the point is.
Miserable.
I wish a lot that it was just as easy as showing you the world through my eyes, you know? You want me to believe the world is miserable. You want to believe that I already believe the world is miserable. That the mere fact of life having limitations and realities is miserable. And I just wish that somehow I could show you what it actually looks like to me. Without the indoctrination, without being raised with unreasonable expectations. I don't even know if the way I see the world is the same as the way ex-theists see the world. You know, there's a lot of ideas in most theisms that get taught at an early age. You know, things about how the world should be, how people work, how societies function, the rewards and the punishments you should expect, and, you know, what life means and what it's for, and all these things that in my world, right from the start, because I was never raised with it, had radically different answers, which to me are just good and fine and normal, and to you are incomprehensible and miserable and valueless and terrifying. It feels a lot of the time like an unbridgeable gap, and I try to bridge it with my words. I try to explain the world as I see it to you. But they're just words. They're not the ideas or the thoughts or feelings or worldview. They're not the way the world is seen by me. They're just a pale representation of it. And I do my best, but I don't think my best is usually enough. But I guess I'll keep trying, because what else do I do?
And that's why when I make the claim that atheists are unhappy, realistically, at the end of the day, ultimately, they are unhappy.
Nope, just more garbage you're assigning to me. Now, I'll admit there are some people who thrived quite well within their theistic worldview and then left it and feel devastated, right? They feel less happy for having left. I'll give you that. There are those people. A lot of the time they kind of find their way over time, but not always. And I've heard people cite some kind of a poll that apparently shows that on average, atheists self-reported to the pollsters lower levels of happiness than the religious people. I don't know anything about that poll. I've never even seen it. Nobody's ever actually linked it to me, I don't think. But I'm willing to provisionally accept the reality of such a thing just to comment on the concept itself. What such a thing would mean. Now, those kind of polls have to be taken with a serious grain of salt, kind of like the ones that show happiness between different countries, which, by the way, on the World Happiness Report, less religious countries tend to be higher on the list than very religious ones. That is, they have greater self-reported happiness. Take that for what it's worth. I don't know what it is worth because, again, I'm not completely sold on these things. People have ideas about what happiness means, about what relative levels of different conditions constitute it, and also these polls don't address causes, right? Like, for example, between atheists and Christians, there could just be less of a feeling of obligation for an atheist to say they feel happy. Because, a Christian wants to project this idea that their religion makes them feel very happy, and God gives them this great meaning to their life and makes them feel free of stress and gives them this incredible joy. There's a big pressure, ideological, social, to express that kind of opinion, because other opinions reflect badly on the religion, and so on, but it doesn't really matter to me. I'm willing to say that on average, statistically, maybe atheists identify themselves as less happy than Christians, but you have to understand, that's not a general statement. That's not atheists are unhappy. That's like a bell curve thing, right? Statistically, on average, atheists self-identify as less happy than Christians statistically self-identify as happy. That doesn't mean atheists are unhappy or Christians are happy. Not by a long shot. So whether this kind of polling means something or doesn't mean something, please don't try to take it as some kind of general statement that you can apply to everyone. Polls like that, even taken at face value, don't imply that there's some kind of widespread crippling depression among atheists. They don't imply that all atheists are less happy than all Christians. If that's what you think it implies, that just means that you don't understand data. Don't apply it to me. How about that? At this stage in my life, when I'm reasonably well settled, established, I don't have a whole lot of worries, things that really get me down. And I have my family, I have the things that really matter to me here. I have a really hard time imagining you being happier than me. It's a pretty high bar. And of course, there's one more thing I have to say about this, which is that what you actually asked was, is that really how you think life is? Referring to the idea that life ends. And the fact is, how that idea makes anyone feel means absolutely nothing if it's true. This entire line of thought that you're on has the vibe of asking me to reject the facts of life in favor of pretty lies that make me feel nice. That's a retreat into a harmless, hurtless, false fantasy world. It's a thing for children who can't yet cope with harsh truths. It's unbecoming of a grown man.
You may be happy for the time being because you got to make money, you got to be with people that you love.
Oh, right, love, worthless, all that, right? You do see my problem with your worldview, right? Here's this problem again, by the way. You may be happy for the time being. Well, yeah. And? Oh no, an emotion might not last forever? Whatever will I do? What a world of abject misery and pain and worthlessness, when feelings aren't eternal. Such greed. Honestly. Only happy with what you have if you have an unlimited amount of it. I know I won't be happy forever. I know at some point I'm going to go and try to stick a screwdriver in a screw and the head's going to strip out and it's going to be a big pain in the ass and I'm going to get all grumpy. And then afterwards I'll be happy again and then at some point I'll be sad. And so will you. You'll be angry and sad and depressed and ecstatic and happy and miserable and you'll feel comfort and pleasure and pain. So what? That's life.
But ultimately, reality is that your life doesn't matter.
Are you serious? Back to this again? You might be happy for the time being, but ultimately, who cares? Me, now, when I'm happy. Oh, but it doesn't matter if you're happy. Yeah, it does. To who? I just told you that. Yeah, but it doesn't, infinitely matter to the universe. This is idiocy.
If there is no God, life doesn't matter. Life moves on without you. Life can do and be without you. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, again, if it's not infinite, it doesn't matter. If your car doesn't run forever, it doesn't matter. If your house doesn't stand forever, it doesn't matter now. If your relationship with your fiancé doesn't last forever, it doesn't matter. If your dog doesn't live forever, it doesn't matter. If your day doesn't last forever, it doesn't matter. If your meal at the restaurant with a close relative you've been estranged from for 20 years and are finally reuniting with for just that one day before they have to leave doesn't have infinite food, it doesn't matter. If your child's childhood doesn't last until the end of time, it doesn't matter. You preach hopelessness. You preach meaninglessness. You preach the only thing that matters is greed, what you can get your grasp on and keep it forever. And if anything changes, if anything ends, it's worthless, including human life. And you want me to believe that your worldview is necessary for me to value human life? Are you completely out of your mind?
It doesn't matter. You're nothing but a big blob, a clump of cells. You came from an accident. You came from an explosion. And nothing. You're just a process of macroevolution. You're a process of evolution. You're no different from a cockroach.
All right, so let me ask you something, because since this is such absolute obvious bullshit, you've got to be getting something out of it, right? Like, you've got to think there's some sort of a benefit in convincing people to believe this line of absolute crap. So what do you get out of it? If people believe this, if people value humans no more than they value cockroaches, despite their innate social instincts, what do you get? Why do you want them to believe this? Why do you want me to believe this? To what end? You don't believe it, and you don't like the belief, so why do you promote it? Why do you insist that we have to believe it? You think maybe if you can convince enough people to adopt that worldview and start tearing the world down, maybe a few of them will buy into the religion along the way? Is that the idea? Destroy the world to get converts? Is that the plan? I'm serious, I don't get it. There's no logic to it, and it doesn't make any sense in relation to what a human being is. Everything you're saying is ludicrous and false, and I can only assume you know it because it's glaringly obvious, and how stupid am I supposed to assume you are? And so what's the game? What's the plan? What's the benefit? Tell me. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Come back and watch parts 2 and 3. They're gonna be also about 45 minutes. I figured that out by now. I did it all at once and then split it into 3 parts, so I know. Please do give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. If you really like the channel, please consider supporting with even like a couple bucks a month. It helps a lot, and huge thanks to all of the supporters on every platform. If you want early access, email list.logicked.com, and see you next time.